There's some moms, especially, who have faced domestic dangerous situations.
For sure.
And they've had to flee those things. And now they're experiencing homelessness because they chose homelessness over something worse.
Yeah.
And hello, and welcome to Root Cause for the Need Foundation's podcast, where we get at the root cause of homelessness and other issues. My name is Allie and Myan, director of For the Need Foundation, and I'm joined by our founder, Myan Spaccarelli. Today, we're talking about why aren't kids at the front lines of the homeless crisis? Why don't they just get jobs, especially teenagers and able-bodied adults?
That's a really good question. That definitely would have an impact if they did. And the question is, why are we seeing it to where they're just not?
Yeah, we see kids come through our program who start at 17 or 18 years old and have never worked, have never even considered working, and we wonder why. But what's crazy is that
we've seen them not graduating school, not going to school.
Yeah.
Having the opportunity to, but not prioritizing it, not making it happen. Yeah, we've seen all that.
Yeah. Do you think it's because of the job market or because something else?
It's hard to say the job market because, when we go throughout downtown LA, you still see, especially for starter jobs, help wanted signs. Mm-hmm. And you hear about other kids getting jobs and things like that. So we're not at a point where you could say that the job market is the holdup. There's definitely some other things, and it's been interesting having conversations with these kids and what they say and what their reasons are for not even considering it.
Yeah. Well, what have you seen kids say?
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you, because you started working young, internship.
Yeah. I got my first job at 16, I think.
And why at 16 did you start getting into the marketplace? Did you have something to buy, or what prompted you?
Well, my environment was set up so that it was just what you do. Like, you turn 16, you start working. Why not? And it was summer. What else was I going to do? And the main thing for me was I had a clear vision of my future. I wanted to give back. Like, I wanted to come back and be part of For the Need, or I was considering being a lawyer. I was also considering maybe being an engineer or an astronaut. I had really big dreams.
Right.
And when you have really big dreams, you have to put the work in as soon as possible. Like, if you want to be an astronaut, you got to start learning Russian. There's just a lot of steps, those baby steps that I knew from an early age I would have to take at some point soon if I wanted to actually achieve any of my big dreams. So for me, it was both my environment and the big dreams I had. But I think I did have big dreams partly because of my family. Like, my parents, you and mom, and even my grandparents always inspired me from a young age. You can do anything. Dream big. You can do anything you set your mind to, and actually just go out and take that action. I'm a Mayor Nick now, but Spaccarelli's like, we're givers, we're doers.
It's funny because you talk about, you're like, I had a clear vision. I was going to be an astronaut. I was going to be a lawyer. You had a vision of some kind of...
I had a vision of something big.
Something big. So, but you mentioned two things. One, your environment, and then two, that you had this vision.
Yeah.
Was there ever anything like, I need a job to survive? Because you didn't mention that. Was that ever like part of the thinking, like, ooh, I might have to pay rent one day or buy food for myself or toothpaste?
Probably less than you'd think, which is interesting because we work with teenagers that were in that same age range all the time who don't think of that either. But I don't know that I really was either. I didn't really have to worry about those things. I knew eventually I'd have to pay for stuff, but I figured if I just dreamed big, that those big dreams would have an income.
Yeah.
And it would work out where I would pay for those things.
And it's interesting making that connection, even like you're thinking you didn't have that connection in your pocket. You just had to put that together of maybe that's why you weren't thinking about survival. Because that's what I'm always interested in with the kids that we deal with, because you grew up where you always had food. You always knew where you're going to sleep,
Yeah.
There wasn't so much of like, oh, survival is an issue. These kids, a lot of times, are moving around. They don't know where they're going to sleep. Sometimes they don't know where they're going to get food. They don't know what the next day is going to bring. Yet we still don't see that like survival element.
Yeah.
which is really interesting to me because you only put yourself in that position. When I grew up, we didn't get very much. I got hand-me-downs from my brother. Uh, I remember one year we got money for going back to school where we got to go buy something, and it was like such a shocker. It was like such an amazing. We're like, what? We can actually buy a new shirt, like it was, and so it never dawned on me that past high school, I was gonna get my anything. I remember being in high school like, holy crap, what am I gonna do? And so for me, that was kind of a natural transition. So why is there this gap? What have you seen with the kids that we see that are living in shelters and stuff that are missing potentially all three of those: the environment, the vision, and the survival?
Well, I see that a lot of them are missing the vision because there's not someone in their life who has accomplished great big visions. Or they're missing that father figure, especially, or even any parental figure who can tell them, dream big, I'm here to support you, and go and do big things. So they're lacking that. And which is why it's so great when they come to our programs, and it just takes not very much
Yeah, it's
to.
it's interesting how little it takes. Like, hey, I thought no, but I will. But yeah, go
Right.
go on.
Yeah. So that's where I see with the vision. They don't have that person inspiring them or telling them that they can accomplish more. And then the survival is interesting too, because you'd think someone who's experiencing homelessness, they're going to be like, "Oh, I need a job, I need this, I need that." Like, but no, they often are in that situation partly because they don't have that mindset of getting a job or starting to provide for themselves. And that's partly why the cycle is repeating itself, because we see these children who are growing up to be teenagers who don't even think of applying. And I think the survival aspect, part of the reason they're not in that survival mode is they are reliant on systems that are providing for them.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those systems don't they're not going to provide for them forever, and those systems have limits. And so even if the system's providing for a family, they're still not making their electricity bill sometimes, or their phone bill, and their phones are getting disconnected. But there is a disconnect between the I've noticed that in a lot of the families there's a disconnect of like, okay, so my phone, I can't pay for this. I just need my services to be more. There's
Mm-hmm.
less so of like I need to work or start at an entry level job to
Yeah.
achieve my next dream. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, we've even seen like on the phone scenario where they're frustrated because the service that's supposed to provide them a phone, something glitched or whatever, or they broke it and they were supposed to get a new one for free, and it's like a whole bunch of entitlement of, dude, why are they delaying? What's wrong? And they're very frustrated, um, and it doesn't trigger, oh, let me get a job, buy my own phone. It's really just a change in the mentality of where their next meal is coming from and how they're gonna survive. And I hate saying like kids these days. I was watching an old Andy Griffith show recently, and Barney Fife, the sheriff. Anyway, I'm old. It's an old black and white show, but literally, he's telling Andy, the kids, these darn kids, they don't have any work ethic. And
Mm.
this is from the 50s, I think, maybe 60s. Um, and so that's not been a new thing. But I do think this situation where the services are just taking another element out of that motivation away, not because they're ill intended. It's just, I don't see a lot of other organizations with their eye on it. And I really want to get our message out there to leaders and people that have influence to say, hey, with small tweaks, this can change. But we're seeing it. We have one kid that's at a shelter, and I've called him a few times. I really like this guy. Whatever reason, we bonded the uh, the day we met at the shelter, and I said, hey, I think I got a great job for you. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, I don't know if I can. And he's been putting me off. Now he says, hey, when I graduate high school, but I got the feeling he's being told not to, and their family services will go down if he raises the household income. And so he was excited at first, and then something happened, and now he's not as excited. Now you can be nervous and scared, but most kids can get over that with a little encouragement.
Yeah.
And usually when it's closer, they get more nervous, not when it's still just an idea. So something's happening.
Is there something with their instability of their living situation, though?
No, not necessarily, because I tried to like overcome all those hurdles. At first, he did say I have to ask my mom, and then that kind of was the pathway to stalling the situation. But we've seen it before.
Right. Like if I had come home and been like, hey, I'm curious about getting a job, like my parents would have been like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me help you. Whereas we're seeing more so like, well, we're nervous about raising the household income and, that could lead to other things.
I remember the one
Yeah.
time you were supposed to get an internship. You didn't get the internship, but they offered you a job, but you had to come in that day with your resume. He's like, Dad, I'm going to get the job. I have to come in with my resume. What's a resume? And
Yeah.
you're so young, but you were eager. And so, yeah, we Googled a template and we worked on the resume, and I said, get it over there quick. Let's get this thing. And that's part
Yeah.
of the thing. But,
I will say for parents though, we've seen so many parents too that are having a really hard time getting a job who are trying their absolute best.
have you been seeing that?
I've seen that, yes. There's some moms, especially, who have faced domestic dangerous situations.
For sure.
And they've had to flee those things. And now they're experiencing homelessness because they chose homelessness over something worse.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important to start when you're young. Like, that's why for these young people to get those entry level jobs that don't require any resume at all.
Yeah.
Like we're putting on the resume for sometimes volunteered at For the Need or served at For the Need or been part of For the Need.
Yeah.
And they're getting entry level jobs
Yeah.
without much trouble. And it's just when they're already that adult who's already established, their career path,
Yeah.
they're having a hard time getting into those like higher level jobs that even require certifications that some of them have.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a lot of hope even for those parents
Sure.
to encourage their kids to start working at those entry level jobs, and for the parents even to just keep pushing forward and keep trying. The job market for mid-level jobs right now is rough. People are applying to, I'm seeing all the time. People apply to 200 jobs, 300 jobs and not getting a job. That's why it's so important to start young
Sure.
and build that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely if you say that the job market has have influence for sure, but and I want to take a step back too. Don't want to put everybody in one category, especially the people that we see, on the front lines of homelessness. There's multiple different categories. The one that discourages me the most is where they've kind of given up and just rely on social services teaching that to their kids.
Yeah.
Because then there's no hope, whether it's a job or not a job. And I don't want to say no hope, but like no thought that they're going to pursue supporting themselves and the positive things that come from that. But, even in my time going through multiple recessions, it's difficult, when you have kids and other situations where you don't have the flexibility. But even in those situations, a lot, you make it your full-time job to find a job.
Yeah.
And we don't see that a lot, and it's less of what we see than what the scenario you're saying, where they've applied to many jobs and things like that. And namely because if they applied for a minimum wage job, they're gonna get less in services. So it's a non-return. So
Yeah.
it's
a deterrent.
It's a
from
deterrent.
Yeah. Sometimes the
Absolutely.
services can be a deterrent.
Yep.
But I do think it's important to overcome that deterrent, because even with an entry level job, even if you make around the same or a little less, there's more upward mobility from it.
Yeah.
And we do see like with families that are, not giving up, that some of them are finding jobs. But then we also see the difficulty of keeping the job when you have a bunch of kids. If a kid's sick and you have to pick them up from school and you're a single parent,
Right.
there's so many other hurdles that a lot of people take for granted that they don't have to worry about. And then also if they have to prioritize feeding their kids over their phone bill and then they can't tell their work they're running late, or there's just so many things that someone who's not experiencing homelessness doesn't have to worry about that they do have to worry about. And I do think there's really great social services to fill in a lot of those
Sure.
gaps, but there are also still other gaps where ultimately it's so important to start with these kids young like
Yeah.
we are,
I mean,
because to avoid that downfall and the spiral of those other hurdles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As you start talking about it and you start mentioning the different hurdles and stuff like that, that we've all felt. I remember when I was younger, I was living in a garage and I'd walk down the street to a bar and hang out over there. And I wasn't necessarily drinking, but then I got that my car that had left back at the garage had gotten a parking ticket, and then I didn't pay it, and then it turned out to be like after a while $450, and I was like, wow, look how fast life can spiral. So it does get overwhelming, and I think a lot of people that want to do good and help out in situations, they start hearing conversations like this and they go, what can we do?
Yeah.
And we always go back to, well, we can start with the kids. It's more long-term effort. It doesn't, you're not changing the situation that day, but you're changing the trajectory to try to add the, what did you say? There was the
The
vision,
vision.
the environment,
Yeah.
and then also that it might not be a survival where um, you're not worried about where your meal's going to come from, but the idea of fending for yourself, like it's like the pride of that accomplishment. And I think about Alan, who we recently helped get a job, and we have to bring money into for the need. We pay for transportation. Most of us, myself included, as a volunteer, I don't take any money out, but we still do need some money, mostly for transportation, bringing the kids from the shelters to events and some of the event supplies. So we were at a thing where we were trying to fundraise, and you brought Alan in to come speak, and he had recently got a job. Now he's working to get his car that we're going to help him with, and all these things. And it's like you said, it was a entry level job. It was a starter job. But not only did it start his job, his paycheck, it started his pathway and his vision. And he is so excited right now. And it was so
Yeah.
good to hear him speak. And he was just so proud to be able to do it as well. And you guys got a grant, and that was amazing. But to me, I was just not even so much excited about the grant. It was more of the feeling I got watching Alan
Yeah.
share, because Alan's like, what am I going to talk about? I go, just speak from the heart. And so he goes, hey, how did I do? I go, dude, you spoke from heart. It doesn't matter the words that came out of your mouth. You spoke from your heart, and you can hear it overflowing with excitement for his future. So
Yeah. Hearing him speak really touched the hearts of everyone there.
yeah, it was great.
It was really an awesome moment. Like, you almost feel like it's like one of our kids or something, you know?
I almost said better. But
What?
no, but just it's like
Yeah.
I'd like your one coach that didn't give out most improved player because he wanted to give it to the person that worked the most. But it is something where you see just a difference,
Yeah.
and you know think that you had some hand in it. To God be the glory, but to think that you had a little involvement, it just makes you want to do more, and shows that we are on the right track, and um,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
And it's great to see him representing, all the kids that we've been working with. And we're excited for Alan's future. And now he's working, and even that job that's entry level, maybe one day he'll be a manager and just keep working his way up with things. And hopefully one day he doesn't have to worry about his phone getting shut off
Yeah.
and where his next meal is going to come from.
Yes.
So it's been really great to discuss this issue. We've covered, the vision, the environment, the system set up, the families, the different circumstances we see, and how kids these days, why they're not getting jobs.
That,
You
that's what
know?
we went through. So,
Exactly.
yep, it's a good
So
thing.
now it's a good thing these kids are getting jobs, some of them, especially the ones we've been working with. And it's been great to see the changes happening, and things are looking better than you'd think for the next generation. And we're excited to be part of it here at For the Need. So thank you for watching Root Cause. We will see you next time.